Many treasures have been searched for. Few have triggered a full military response. In August 2015, the Polish government sent army engineers, ground-penetrating radar, and geologists into the hills outside Wałbrzych, Poland, to investigate a claim that sounded almost too absurd to be true. Two amateur explorers, Piotr Koper and Andreas Richter, stood before television cameras and announced they had found it. A 150-meter armored train, they said, hidden inside a tunnel beneath the Owl Mountains since the final days of the Second World War. Loaded, according to legend, with gold, gemstones, and looted art the Nazis never had time to move. The story behind their claim stretches back to January 1945. The Red Army is closing in on Lower Silesia. German forces are retreating west in chaos, and somewhere in that chaos, according to decades of local rumor, a train vanishes. Not destroyed, not captured, simply gone, swallowed, some say, by one of the secret tunnels of Project Riese, a vast unfinished Nazi complex bored into the mountainside for reasons Germany's own engineers barely explained before the war ended. For 70 years, treasure hunters, historians, and conspiracy theorists picked over that story and found nothing but rock and rumor. Then two men with a radar scanner said they had proof. The Polish deputy culture minister called the claim highly probable. Poland's Ministry of National Defense sent a survey team. National news outlets across the world ran the headline within hours. The Nazi gold train had been found. There was just one problem. Nobody had actually opened the tunnel yet. Project Riese begins in 1943, when Nazi Germany starts blasting a network of underground tunnels into the Owl Mountains of Lower Silesia, then part of the German province of Silesia, now southwestern Poland. Historians still argue about its purpose. Some believe it was meant to house an underground armaments factory. Others think it was a bunker complex for Adolf Hitler himself, who never once used it. What is certain is the scale. An estimated 13,000 slave laborers, most of them prisoners from the nearby Gross-Rosen concentration camp, dug through solid granite using little more than hand tools and desperation. Thousands of them died in the process from collapses, from exhaustion, from the cold. By January 1945, the project sits unfinished, and the war is collapsing around it. Soviet forces are advancing from the east at a pace the German high command cannot match. Records from the region grow patchy and contradictory, a symptom of an administration in freefall, not necessarily of conspiracy. But into that gap steps a persistent local legend, that a train loaded with looted valuables from Breslau, modern-day Wrocław, was ordered onto a spur line near the town of Wałbrzych, then known by its German name, Waldenburg, and driven directly into one of Riese's tunnels for safekeeping. The legend has a name attached to it: SS officials overseeing the evacuation of regional wealth as the Reich collapsed, and a specific number that gets repeated for decades. 300 meters of track, enough to swallow an armored train whole and seal it behind rockfall. For 7 decades, the story stays local, mostly dismissed by professional historians who point out that no wartime document has ever confirmed a train entered that tunnel, let alone that one remains inside it. Then, in 2015, a dying man changes everything. On his deathbed, he reportedly reveals to Piotr Koper the tunnel's supposed location information passed down, he claims, from someone who helped hide it 70 years earlier. August 28, 2015. Koper and his partner Andreas Richter stand over their ground-penetrating radar readout and see it. A shape 100 meters long, sitting where no natural rock formation should be. They go public. Within days, the phrase Nazi gold train is trending across the world, and the mayor of Wałbrzych is fielding calls from international news crews descending on a town of 110,000 people that has never seen anything like this. Polish law moves fast behind them. Under national heritage statutes, anything found within Polish borders belongs to the state, not the finders, so before a single shovel breaks ground, lawyers and government officials are already negotiating what percentage, if any, Koper and Richter might receive. The Polish army sends engineers with core drilling equipment and radar specialists of their own to verify the claim independently. Geologist Janusz Madej, brought in to review the data, adds a chilling caveat. If a train is down there, it is almost certainly booby-trapped, wired with explosives by retreating German forces, standard practice for anything the Reich could not carry and refused to leave for the enemy. Excavation begins in earnest in 2016. Drilling crews bore into the hillside at the coordinates Koper and Richter provided. Ground radar sweeps the tunnel walls. Journalists camp nearby for weeks, waiting for the reveal. The tunnel opens. The chamber is empty. No train. No gold. No armor plating buried in rubble. Independent geological surveys conclude that the radar anomaly was almost certainly a natural rock and soil formation, not a hollow chamber and not a train. The Polish deputy culture minister, who once called the find highly probable, says nothing further. Koper and Richter never fully abandoned their claim, insisting the equipment was misread or the site was already looted decades ago, but they produced no train, no gold, and no photographs of either. The town of Wałbrzych, briefly the center of the world's attention, returns to its ordinary rhythm. The camera crews leave. The mayor stops taking calls about gold. What remains are the tunnels themselves. Still there, still mostly unmapped, a monument to a project the Nazis never finished and a war that ended before anyone could account for everything it swallowed. Because that is the deeper truth beneath the headline. Project Riese was never really about a train. It was about 13,000 people forced into a mountain to dig something no one now can fully explain, many of whom never came back out. The gold train legend gave that story a treasure hunt shape the world could not resist. But the real loss buried in those hills was never gold. Herculaneum and Pompeii were buried by nature and eventually found. What disappeared into the Owl Mountains in 1945 may never be found at all because, in the end, there may be nothing there to find. If you want more stories like this, subscribe. A new piece of history drops every week. Share this video with someone who loves history. Comment below. What part of this story surprised you most?